Greetings from Castle Goring, from Mickey, Aurora, and from me. Well, I hope I'm not coming down with something because it's been warm, but I have felt rather cooler than I find comfortable. So I'm bundled up. I have to say, I've noticed nowadays, every time one goes out, everybody wants to kiss one, the way everybody used to kiss. And I have to say, since COVID, I'm not so crazy about being kissed by anyone. I keep on saying COVID kisses, as people zero in. And I think that's why one keeps on getting colds, because aside from anything else, by being isolated for the length of time that we were, our immune systems suffered. Anyway, without further ado, but so that I've explained why I'm bundled up. Well, doubtless everybody knows that Harry didn't condescend to show up in court yesterday, and that Mr. Justice Fancourt was spitting bricks. Let me tell you, when a judge remonstrates with a no-show witness, the way Mr. Diesel's come to say hello. He's come from next door, naughty Diesel. When a judge remonstrates with a witness who hasn't shown up and has shown such disrespect to the court, you can depend on it. He has already shows the judge his contempt for the court. And judges don't like to feel that witnesses hold them, the law, and courts in contempt. More than that, I do not want to say at this point. A little later, I'm going to make another allusion to Harry's case, but in the meantime, I'm just going to go on to the more prevalent and maybe less exciting, but actually equally exciting news. So, if I may, I'm going to try to get rid of Diesel, because Diesel is going to be taking up too much of my attention. So I might have to take a little break from Diesel. LJP says, Lady C, what do you make of Anna Wintour shoving Edward Enninful out as editor of Vogue? Do you have any insight into what happened and why? I do, actually. I do. Well, I'm going to say it exactly as it is. Edward Enninful wanted Anna Wintour's job. He was not silent about the fact that Anna Wintour at 73, I think she might be 74, was working on borrowed time, and it was just a matter of waiting before he became the editor of American Vogue. Well, that was a fatal error right there, because Anna Wintour, rather like me, is in command of all her faculties and energy and has no intention of retiring anytime soon. So that was the first mistake he made. But the overarching mistake he made was really he he didn't understand that he was turning a Vogue into too black a publication. And, you know, you're a black editor of Vogue. So what that you're black? I mean, the reality is, and I'm going to read some statistics out, because in the 2021 census in this country, the total population of England and Wales was 59.6 million, and 81.7% of the population was white. People from Asian ethnic groups made up the second largest percentage of the population, 9.3%, followed by black, 4%, mixed, 2.9%, and other, 2.1%. I've had complaints from people of color about the fact that in the wake of the Black Lives Matter movement, that there was an aggressive stance being taken by the publications and the advertisers, as if black people accounted for maybe 60 to 80% of the population, but certainly 40 to 50%, because the ads involved at least 40 to 60% of black and or mixed race people, usually nothing to do with the Chinese or the subcontinentals or the Japanese. Interesting that. And the reality is that the average black person in this country is not a natural Vogue reader. So the constant pushing of blackness turned out to be financially disastrous, because there came a point where people thought, excuse me, why are you pushing such a radicalized racial agenda when it's a fashion magazine? It doesn't have to be. Now, it doesn't have to be constantly reminding us that you, the editor, are black, and that you have an agenda for promotion of black people. You're not supposed to be promoting any entity that you have sympathy for when your primary responsibility is to the shareholders and the owners of the company to maximize interest so that you maximize sales. And of course, the sales tanked. So, that, I am told, is the reason why he has been shoved out. Now, I have very good reports about him as a person. But I think even though he's been given a position at Condé Nast, I think his Condé Nast days are over. Vogue is about selling glamour. It's about selling fantasy. It's about selling fashion. It's not about pushing race-promoting agendas of any kind. No. I certainly have nothing against women of colour being, if they're beautiful, being on covers of magazines and being in magazines. Nor do I have anything against any other category of human being used as a vehicle for glamour. But it becomes deeply unglamorous when you have all of these political, racial agendas at play. And people have voted with their feet. They're not interested in buying a Vogue with endless black models and endless virtue signaling by a black editor about blackness. And quite frankly, they're right, in my opinion, because there's something almost racist about pushing any one racial agenda too far. I mean, we've come a long way from the bad old days when black girls didn't make covers and black girls weren't in publications. And that's a good thing. But why, in a nation where the population is so small, should the representation, especially in a fantasy publication, be so large? I think it's called hoisting yourself on your own petard. Very sad, but that's the way it is. Oh, and there's another question from LJP. There are rumours circulating that the new Duke of Edinburgh is seriously ill. Is that to distract from the more troubling rumours about the health of the King and Queen? Observations are being made about his long-term health and how shaky she is, and how wooden she seems at times in contrast to her normal ebullience. I know from friends that she avoids, whenever possible, evening events, as she tires easily and needs to be in bed early. Can you dish the dirt? No, I can't. Sorry. Prince Edward has lost a lot of weight. Prince Edward took the Queen's death very much to heart. More than that, I'm not going to say about Prince Edward. As for the King and Queen's health, you know, there are rumours. And if I knew something, I'm not going to tell anybody. Because if people wish to preserve their dignity and their privacy, should they have health issues, I would not regard it as suitable for me to be commenting. I think you don't tear fig leaves off public figures when there is no need, and there is no pressing need, just to satisfy the curiosity of people who wish to know and are interested. I hope that answers the question. It's a subject I am not prepared to go into beyond what I have just said. Sorry. Linda Jackson says, I thought the Queen of Jackson was an American, Queen Noor. Is that correct? So is this her son who got married? Certainly isn't. Her son is Prince Hamza, who overreached, evidently with Queen Noor's sympathy. And so Queen Noor is the Dowager Queen of Jordan. She is the widow of King Hussein. Her children with King Hussein are not the immediate successors to the throne. King Abdullah II, his mother was Tony Gardner, Princess Muna al-Hussein, who was the second wife of King Hussein. It was a love match. They met. Her father was working in Jordan. They met, they fell in love, they got married. Her son, who is obviously half British, King Abdullah, is now the king. And his son is the Crown Prince. In the Jordanian line of succession, the monarch can appoint his successor. So for many, many years, in fact, until shortly before King Hussein died, his brother was the Crown Prince. And only when King Hussein realized he was going to die did he change the order of succession, making his son heir to the throne. When this happened, to appease Queen Noor, who I have very good reports of her, incidentally. I know people who know her very well, and she's beautiful. She really is beautiful. Her father was Najib Halabi, who was the head of Pan American. Syrian. Her father was Syrian. And while Princess Muna al-Hussein was never made queen, because she was not Arab, Noor was made queen because although she's American, her father was Syrian, so she's Arab. Well, their son was for a short while Crown Prince, which was King Hussein's way of really rewarding Queen Noor for having been an excellent queen throughout the duration of her reign as queen. Well, King Abdullah changed it and made his son Crown Prince, which is perfectly acceptable. It didn't go down that well in certain quarters. And there was a difficulty a few years ago where Hamza was trying to overstep the mark and was given a slap on the wrist very sternly. So I hope that answers the question. Because Queen Rania is the Queen of Jordan. She is Palestinian, beautiful woman. Again, I have very good reports of her. Some very good friends of mine are relations of one of the queens of Jordan, and I'm not going to say which one. So people who know me well will know exactly who I'm speaking about. But Queen Rania has been impeccable. Queen Noor was impeccable while she was queen. Queen Rania has been impeccable throughout her stay on the throne, shall we put it. And I suspect their son and daughter-in-law will ultimately make a very good king and queen as well. Angie McMullin says, that PR company is trying to re-establish Meghan's reputation. Well, good luck with that one. That woman will never change. She can't help herself. She has to vent her vitriol. It's her personality issues. That means she will always fail. Angie McMullin, I've read it out because basically I agree with you. You know, they can dress up the donkey in any sort of harness they want and enter it into the race as a thoroughbred. It's gonna bray. It's a donkey. It's not a thoroughbred. Meghan, off what I know of her as a result of my researches, the book I have written, the people I have spoken to, the people who know her very well, has always basically been a miserable, cretinous creature that had the patina of charm and deliberate enthusiasm and energy in her desire to succeed. And once she reached the platform that she had been aiming for, she then relaxed her guard fatally, stopped making an effort to deploy the tools that had got her to be the success that she undoubtedly was. She made the fatal error of giving up all the artificial techniques and all the artifices and all the ploys that she had employed to reach where she reached, and just relaxed into herself. Fatal error. As Heraclitus says, character is destiny. Meghan should have continued to thrive and thrust and strive. Sorry, not thrive. To strive and thrust. And had she striven the way she had been striving for most of her life, because she's a hustler, she's definitely a doer, and had she continued with that attitude and not relaxed into the underlying negativity, the underlying dislike of self, the underlying conflicts and destructiveness which propelled her to great success. Had she continued to utilize the techniques that had got her there, she would have continued to be a success. But once she achieved the success that she had been aiming for, she misread the situation totally. And at that point, she indulged in self-gratification. Up to that point, she had been very adept at self-denial. Look at her earlier interviews. Look at what she wrote. Look at the things she said. And aside from the tremendous embroidery that she indulged in as she was propelling herself ever upwards and trying to make out that she was better than she was. She nevertheless was very disciplined and denied. And she was an ace self-denier, which in a funny sort of way was positive, because any successful person should not be indulging the destructive and negative aspects of their personality. They should be keeping them at bay at best, if not trying to eradicate them. That's not what she did. She exposed herself, and I'm afraid once the emperor has sailed down that street in transparent raiments that show what a ghastly body he has, he cannot thereafter expect people to believe that he is strong and vigorous and endowed the way he would like everybody to believe he was endowed. Let me put it that way. Catherine Lee says, I don't care who is managing her. She will never be rehabilitated. She is a hateful person. Catherine Lee, you have expressed the view that millions of people all over the world now possess. Going off her conduct, she has exposed herself. She has shown us what she is really like. The emperor has shown us that he is a wizened, deformed creature who's trying to tell us that he is young, vigorous, intact, and superb, a superman, when in fact he's a supermouse. There's also something else going on, though, where Meghan is concerned. All these stories about that they are retreating, that they are going to be no longer trashing the royal family, etc., etc. Her mouthpiece is bringing out a book in August amid scabies. It's called Endgame. There will be a lot of support for Harry and Meghan in that book, discussing the monarchy and the disastrous and disgusting way in which Meghan was treated and Harry was treated. Where did he get all of this information from? I don't think we need to look very far. Remember how both Meghan and Harry, actually, the both of them, as well as amid scabies, denied having had anything to do with funding freedom and finding freebies. Then it emerged that they had. This is just another ploy. Wait for it. The fact is, though, that William Morris Endeavour has told her to lay off the negativity. Will she be able to? Even if she does, she has exposed herself. That emperor is a wizened creature who is malformed and has no attributes worth seeing. And how do we know? Because he has sailed down the high street in transparent raiments. And once we know how inadequate he is, we're never gonna buy the lie of how adequate he is thereafter. Donna Jarvis says, Edo and Beatrice would be great as working royals. I think Edo has surely been a great influence for Beatrice. Yes, I agree. He has the patina of genuine breeding with good taste, because you can be well bred and have no taste or bad taste. He has good taste. He has the sensitivity of an artistic personality. And if you look at his life before he ended up with Beatrice, you will see that there is a degree of sophistication and civility that not all the royals possess. He's been a good influence on her, and I suspect he'll continue to be a good influence on her. Dapper men like him don't like dray horses as wives. They want their wives to trot like lipizzaners. That's what they want. And good luck to the both of them. And I think it would be very nice if they are ultimately made working royals. Porgy Tompkins says, the irony is that suits is short for lawsuits, and Harry has become a common scam artist with his frivolous suits. Re his privacy. Wonder who gave him legal advice. Someone who thinks they know the law from playing one on TV? Well, Porgy Thompson. I was a paralegal. I was the best and hottest thing. I was a genius. I couldn't pass exams, but I was a genius, and that's why I was the star of Suits, number one on the call sheet. Sorry. I was number one on the call sheet. No, you weren't, Megsy baby. You were number 6 on the call sheet. You were number 6 then, and you're number 6 now. She fancies herself a great legal mind, and I'll tell you, she has legal aptitude. She is wily, she is foxy, she is resourceful, and she is ruthless and exploitative, all of which make her a formidable legal opponent. She herself will tell you that she identified with Rachel Zane and made sure that they built in a lot of her into Rachel Zane, and she was influenced by Rachel Zane. So all this slap him once, slap him twice, slap him again is Meghan, fantasist Meghan, living out her Rachel Zane character and role, I should say, on the world stage. But Harry? Well, somebody who has such superb legal instincts for herself. But somehow Harry's legal instincts and the influence that she's had on Harry seems to have been to his detriment. Of course, a lot of it could be that when these lawsuits started, Harry and Meghan's reputations were infinitely better than they now are. By exposing themselves, they have destroyed their reputations and with it, their legal viability. She's very careful what she does in terms of lawsuits. She has encouraged him to be the champion of muzzling the press. It's a no-lose situation for her. The more unpopular he is the stronger position she is in the event of a divorce, and in the meantime, to make him more vulnerable and dependent upon her. It's a brilliant ploy. Not admirable in my view. Certainly not desirable. But in terms of technique, right up there with all of the low-down things that foxy, wily, manipulative, exploitative people like Rachel Zane would indulge in. Because remember, Rachel Zane was also literally in bed with a fraudster. Says something about Rachel's morality, doesn't it? Daniel Allen says, oh, sorry. And before I finish this, I should say, Harry today will have been in court. But I can't address that issue here and now. I have to wait until Thursday, and I'm also going to be doing it tonight on GB News. But I can't do it here and now because this wouldn't be able to be done, to be uploaded at 4 o'clock. With input from Harry's situation. So it needs to wait till Thursday. Okay? Daniel Allen says, what would happen to the children? I'm sure Harry loves them in the event of a divorce or marital difficulties. The children are always a concern. I would be very surprised if we are going to hear news in the next few weeks that Harry and Meghan are about to get divorced. The fact that Harry has called in lawyers to advise him on various things, and the fact that their marriage is subject to strain, as indeed most marriages are at some point. Of course, anybody who loves his children, and Harry always wanted to be a father, and is evidently a very involved father. I know a lot of you think the children don't exist. The children do exist. Really, they do exist. And there's no doubt in my mind that they are Harry's children, and that Harry loves them the way any devoted, family-orientated father would love his children. And although Harry has turned his back on his birth family and has colluded turning her back on all but one member of her birth family, doesn't alter the fact that he is committed to his children. That's a complicating factor that needs to be borne in mind when people think, oh, they're going to get divorced tomorrow. There are people who have remained in unhappy marriages for 50 years because they don't want their children to be affected. Then the children grow up and they frittered away their lives, and they may as well stay with the poison ivy that has encircled them and caused such grief to them. That, I have to tell you, is an element that took place in my own family. Because one of my sisters, when I said that I had asked Daddy if he regretted marrying Mummy, and he said no, he said, I met her when she was 15 years old and I was 26. I was her Uncle John's good friend. I met her at blah, blah, blah. And I loved her then and I love her now. And I believed it. And one of my sisters said, well, what did you expect him to say? That he was going to admit to himself or to anybody else that he destroyed all of our lives? She might have a point, and I might have a point. Who knows? The point is, in certain very mixed up situations, maybe conflicting points are both valid. I just throw that out for what it's worth. Because really, life is very nuanced. And it's not like a storybook where it's either one thing or the other. Sometimes it's both at the same time. Graham Lynn says, some of these names. Meghan Markle lusts after celebrity and wealth. Harry lusts after power. Harry madly wants to be more powerful than his father and brother. Interesting point that you make. Many people would agree with you. I don't think Harry lusts after power, though. I think Harry lusts after ratifying his own importance to himself and for himself and from others about himself. I think Harry has a massive chip on his shoulder and always did. This is one of the bonds he has with Meghan, because she has a similarly flawed personality. I think he would like to eclipse his father and brother. But without Meghan, he would never have done any of the things he's done. I really think he would not have. I think she has been the architect of the whole thing, and he has gone along with it because of his flawed personality and also his addiction to her, because he is addicted to her. And sometimes, as they used to say in AA, when the pain of drinking becomes greater than when the pain of not Yeah, when the pain of drinking becomes greater than the pain of not drinking, you give up drinking. But in the meantime, it's a bugger's muddle. Victoria Gill says, Dear Lady C, love your show. Thank you. I watched Phillip Schofield's interview and he seemed to suggest he may be pushed to his death, saying, do you want me dead? Do you think he's on the edge as he has got from top drawer to the basement floor and wondering how this will affect his mental health? What do you think? I think Phillip Schofield is a nasty piece of work and anything he gets he deserves. And I think Phillip Schofield is far too narcissistic and far too self-centered a person to do any such thing. And if he does, the choice is his. I personally don't think that I wouldn't recommend it. I would certainly recommend not doing it. I don't think he's going to do it. I think he's very devious and manipulative, and it's just a ploy. Phillip Schofield has spent his whole life playing the public the way Meghan Markle plays the public. He was rather more successful for far longer than she has been. But they are both ace violinists. And he has played all sorts of unsympathy, and he's trying to retrieve the situation for himself by making everybody else guilty. Well, Phillip Schofield is guilty of being a nasty piece of work. Much of what is happening to him is not happening because of homophobia, which is what he and some of his supporters are trying to make out. That's utter rubbish. Phillip Schofield is getting his just desserts because he is a nasty piece of work who has dumped on people from a great height over a period of decades. And now that he is vulnerable, he doesn't like the fact that people are condemning him. Before, if they had tried to condemn him, they were silenced. The only person, if you stop to think of it, who wasn't muzzled and who has, for the last 3 years, been saying what Phillip Schofield was, is me. Everybody else was muzzled. Well, he couldn't muzzle me because I'm not an employee of or a presenter on any television station. I do have a slot on GB News, a weekly slot, but GB News values my right to my opinion, while most of the other television stations do not value their contributors' rights to their authentic opinions. So until GB News came into existence, you were caught, if you were a professional presenter, between the devil and the deep blue sea. If you didn't play ball and you were a member of the This Morning team, you'd be shoved out. If you were too popular, you'd be shoved out. Phillip Schofield went to great lengths to get rid of Eamon Holmes and Dan Wooten. If you were inconvenient, as his teenage lover was, you were also shunted aside. It's not homophobia to say that a man who's nearly 40 years older than his young lover, and he dumps the young lover who is totally besotted with him. And of course, he has obviously promised he's going to give this young man a huge career. And when he thinks that news of this inappropriate relationship is going to get out, he not only dumps the young man, but destroys his career. So how is that homophobic? That's not homophobic. That's the ruthless character of a really nasty, exploitative personality, which in my view is what Phillip Schofield is. Saying that if he hadn't been gay, none of this would be happening is utter rubbish. Prince Andrew has lost far more than Phillip Schofield lost. Notwithstanding the fact that Prince Andrew was never anybody's boss, and the age gap between Prince Andrew and his teenaged accuser was half of what Phillip Schofield's was with this young man. So how is Phillip Schofield a victim of homophobia? I mean, the whole thing is just ridiculous. Phillip Schofield used that young man, in my view, and then misused him. The way he has misused too many people, including me. And I am going to ask Sean, who edits this, to put a link or to add it, maybe, to the end of this. My interview with Phillip's, not my interview, sorry, my comments following Phillip Schofield's attack on me 3 years ago, when, of course, the Mirror, which I was suing, piled in, and I was being victimized, not only by Phillip Schofield, but by the Mirror and one or two other publications. Did anybody come to my rescue? I don't recall it. Yet Phillip Schofield has his gay brigade accusing everybody of homophobia. Homophobia has nothing to do with it. The guy's a jerk and a creep, and I'm glad his career is over because he was not fulfilling the requirements of his career. He was supposed to be interviewing people, not belittling people, not telling lies about people, not trying to trash people, not misrepresenting people, and not being a sanctimonious, hypocritical ponce pretending to be a decent person. Sorry. Homophobia has nothing to do with this. And I will now say thank you very much for listening. I hope this has been of some interest to you. This will lead in to the interview that I did with Leo von Briethen-Thurn in June 3 years ago, following the way I was completely mauled by Phillip Schofield and the gutter press publications such as The Mirror, when all I did was write a book that has turned out to be completely accurate. And since people should have been going off my track record, as all my other books have been accurate, there was no need to be so vicious about me. Okay, so this will lead into the other. Okay, thank you very much. God bless.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Castle Goring, chatting with Lady C. Hello Georgie, how are you today?
Hello Leo, I'm very well, thank you. Exhausted, but well, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Didn't see you for centuries.
Oh, yes, it's been quite an eternity, hasn't
Yes.
it?
Well, you're now having many interviews and all dealing with the press and regarding your books, so
Yes,
it's really good for you.
Well, it's not all really good, because some of it has been decidedly unpleasant. Because, for instance, earlier today, or I think it might have been yesterday, I'm not sure which one, the Mirror published a story that is basically a complete misrepresentation and really, lying about me, and that infamous interview conducted with His Majesty of the Closet, and where he was aggressive towards me. And because I'm suing the Mirror, and the public, of course, won't know this because it's not actually hit the papers yet, because it's where there's still lawyers going back and forth. But I am suing the Mirror on very serious grounds. And so they are publishing all sorts of stories about me, putting very negative spins, trying to make out somehow that, for instance, I, who have been abused by His Majesty of the Closet, who was so aggressive towards me, that I was aggressive towards him. I mean, I don't know. Since we've received thousands, as you will know, literally thousands of complaints about the way I was treated from people. And also, of course, they shut off their comments, not the Mirror, His Majesty of the Closet, and this morning shut off their comment section to prevent people saying how completely appalled they were by their behaviour. So now the Mirror is trying to make out that I attacked him, not that he attacked me, and I defended myself civilly, intelligently, and actually, as hundreds of people have said, in one way or the other, I literally wiped the floor with him. But they haven't said that. They try to make out that somehow I'm the aggressor. Well, of course, it's really dumb of them, because come the time for settlement, or when it goes to trial, and there's no doubt that I'm going to win, because what they said about me was so completely false, out of line. And you couldn't make it up if you were a complete imbecile or evil, but they managed to. That it will aggravate the damages. But in the meantime, I think I ought to draw everybody's attention to the fact, don't read a word that the Daily Mirror has to say about me, because they are liars, they are frauds, they have it in for me. And of course, the reality is that Harry and Meghan do have a point about the British press. Well, at least the tabloid element of the British press. Because they are unfair, and they are often aggressive and abusive, and they are often functioning to the detriment of the public figures they write about. However, where Harry and Meghan have no case is that the country needs a free and robust press more than public figures need an easy ride. And so, for that reason alone, so I say, we don't need to change any of the protocols governing the press freedom, the way public figures are treated, royals, etc. because there are already laws and protocols in place where we can defend ourselves when things go too far, which is what I'm doing against the Daily Mirror. And of course, they are responding by going against me in unacceptable ways, by just plain plumb lying about me. It also has to be said that I find it quite amusing reading some of the crazier comments, people who've not read the book and who've decided, I suppose, they're called Meghan and Harry sugars.
Yes.
And some of the comments that are posted about the book and about the contents of the book. They've not read the book. They don't know anything about the book. And they're publishing stupid comments. Having said that, I will read one or two of the comments from one or two people who have read the book.
Mm-hmm.
So if I may, I will just very quickly have a look and read them, because it's interesting to see what the comments are. Okay. Aesthetician from Chelsea says, actually, he or she posted two comments.
Oh.
The first one was, I'm already on page 35 of your book, Lady C, and I'm absolutely loving it. It is very well written and gives a very balanced, fair account. Then later on, the comment says, there are more insights into the royal family than I've ever read before. It's jaw-dropping and gasp-worthy. I was up till 2 a.m. with it again last night. A brilliant read and covers everything from the day he met her until now. Much of the information comes from insiders. Well, that's a true and a fair comment.
Yes.
And there are others along those lines, but I don't want to belabor all our viewers with endless positive comments.
Yes.
But it's nice to know that people have read it and they've got it, the message, because it is balanced and it is fair. And I do bend over backwards to give credit where credit is due. And it's slightly annoying when the newspapers try to lie about it, but it's actually rather entertaining when the crazies come out with some of their comments, because you have to laugh, I'm not going to repeat any of them on air, but I've been laughing behind the scenes when they're pointed out to me.
Yes.
And just do lally time.
Yes. Well, but what do you think was the reason why this person in your interview said this to you?
Well,
what caused the whole heating
up? Well, of course, there are two answers to that question. I will read out a question that provides part of the answer. It's from somebody who says, could you please address your interview with Phillip Schofield? Is it not true that Mr. Schofield was shagging a young male member of his staff while lying to Holly Willoughby, his wife, and the rest of the free world about his sexuality? Is it not true that he only came out of the closet after he was caught in flagrante delicto with his boyfriend, hence his aversion to gossip? Well, that's the first question, part of the question, which is, I'm no expert on Phillip Schofield, never was, don't intend to be. I have better things to do than waste my time with a creature of that magnitude. But I don't know the story behind his outing beyond knowing that I would never have outed him. I don't believe in outing people. If someone's life is private and they wish to keep it private, I'm perfectly happy to keep it private in ways like that. So I would never have outed him. But he outed himself evidently when a newspaper was about to blow the whistle on him. And my son, who wrote something that the Mirror picked up yesterday, I think it was, because they had two stories regarding me and my book, and or Phillip Schofield, and or His Majesty of the Closet. And my son, Dima, who was at the ITV Awards with me, he was about 3 or 4 feet behind me. And I was in a walkway, and Phillip Schofield bounced into me, shoved me, trying to knock me down, obviously so that I would look ridiculous or people would think I was drunk or some such thing. And I said to him, "Oh, excuse me," as he walked past, but I said it completely instinctively because I didn't know who it was until he'd walked past. And my "excuse me" was a remonstration. And I realised he'd done it deliberately, and Dima confirmed to me that he'd done it deliberately. That when I was in the jungle, Phillip Schofield went for me hell for leather with everybody at every occasion he could get. Well, I suppose Phillip Schofield is jealous of me because, you know, I had a birth defect that I have been open about all my life. And I'm neither proud nor ashamed of it. It's just a fact of life, and I don't think you can be proud of having had a birth defect. You may have some pride in having coped with it well, but it's not something you can be proud of or should be proud of. It's just a fact of life that you accept. Well, of course, Phillip Schofield has known, according to him, since he was very young, that he was gay, yet went through the pretense of being straight, deceived a woman who he married and with whom he had 2 children. And then, so I suppose that Phillip Schofield has looked at someone like me and thought, crikey, why does she get to be liberated when I'm so sort of secretive and ashamed? But of course, if he had been a little bit more honest, he wouldn't have needed to be secretive and ashamed. But anyway, be that as it may, Dima said after
the whole thing on the TV,
the whole thing on the TV, and people saying, Dima was being very sweet and trying to defend me, and he said on Twitter, "I personally remember," and he sent this to His Majesty of the Closet, "I personally remember when you tried to shove my mother at the ITV Awards. You hate authoritative women. You read a teleprompter your whole life, hide in a closet, and you want to define the truth. For your own mental health, you are delusional. All absolutely true and fair." Well, of course, several newspapers responded to that by asking for interviews with me and with Dima. When I turned down the requests for the interviews, they started to offer me money to give the interviews. Well, that, you know, really means they're desperate to hear what you have to say. Well, I have not sold anything to any of the newspapers, and I do not propose to sell anything to any of the newspapers. I'm limiting myself to these comments because all of my supporters who have been so nice to comment, I think you deserve some feedback. And the reason I think why Phillip Schofield dislikes me so much is, I agree with Dima. I think he doesn't like strong women. I think he also doesn't like honest people. And, you know, nobody is more threatened by an honest person than a perpetual phony and a long-standing fraud. And I think where Phillip Schofield is concerned, there is absolutely no doubt that he has no respect for the truth, as I told him, that he is also ignorant, insofar as disliking gossip. I think it's farcical. His program is one long line of gossip on a daily basis, facile gossip. And he also is so ignorant that he doesn't, neither he nor the Dolly Holly seems to understand that a proper biography, you do not actually
write together with this person.
No, you don't. And also, some of the absolute idiots, brain-dead creatures on the internet who have been making comments like, oh, I never buy the book because she hasn't spoken to Harry and Meghan about it and they haven't endorsed it. I mean, one wonders whatever happened to the educational system. When I was young, in Jamaica, yes, which was a relatively poor country, everybody got a good education. Everybody who wanted to learn walked out of school knowing that a biography is something that is written about somebody. If the person doesn't have to be alive, they can be dead, yes, but it is written and without the collusion of the subject of the biography. And you certainly do not seek an endorsement from the subject of the biography. I mean, these people what planet are they on? Did they go to school? Do they think 2 and 2 is 22? I mean, give me a break, just ridiculous. But anyway, yes, I suppose though, I'm not complaining because the book is doing tremendously well. It's, and there are loads of people out there who are intelligent. Press have been reporting that Meghan's people have been criticising a speech the Prince of Wales gave in terms of the inclusivity in this country racially, and saying that, no, Meghan didn't get any support from the royal family. And on a slightly different but rather more concerning note, that Meghan's race was used against her and all of that claptrap. I really despair that this situation with Meghan and Harry has become so ugly, and that to promote themselves in America and enhance their earning ability, that they can actually be paying people to make adverse comments about his father and her father-in-law's actions when he makes a really important speech about race and the tremendous progress that has been made in race relations in this country. Everybody will know who studied history that revolutions usually start not while a country is grindingly poor, or not while society is at the baseline, but when prosperity and prospects are opened up for more and more people. We are living in a world, whether people want to acknowledge it or not, where more people are better off with more choices, greater wealth, greater freedom than they have ever been in the history of humanity. So that means on some level, most people in this world are better off than they would have ever been at any other time in history. Are we seriously trying to bring down the edifice of such advancement and such progress and such accomplishment, to satisfy the ravings of a few lunatics, because, you know, the very vocal, activistic element that is behaving so irresponsibly and moaning and groaning about the fact that better can be done and therefore rip everything down. Better has never been done than has been done at this moment in time historically. And we really need to be mindful of that. Now, I'm not saying that we still can't move on to do better, but you cannot improve a society with anarchy, with false assumptions, with ridiculous complaints. I mean, Trevor Phillips is the former head of the Commission for Racial Equality, and he will tell you that Britain is better off racially than it has ever been. He's just one of the many people. You know, I grew up with people in Jamaica who now play a very important part in the movement in this country for the improvement of Black lives. And I'm not going to be mentioning their names because they're friends of mine, and what we speak about privately, I'm not going to bring them into a discussion that is not controlled and not controllable, because at the moment, you know, it seems to me that the radical element, the irresponsible element, the unknowing and unconscionable element is gaining too great a voice in terms of social progress. And in so doing, they are endangering the progress that has been made so far. And they will continue to endanger it. Because the reality is, you cannot, on a deck of cards, just grab the card that you want. You need to treat the whole deck of cards responsibly.
Yeah, that's true. Well, can I ask you one quick last question before we finish this episode? It's we go back again to the interview with Philip. Why do you think that he, after all this, his history and what he's done, and that he's not so kind, what do you think, why he's still in this position and at this show working?
Because he's popular. He's popular with a lot of people. You know, he has a reputation publicly, I understand, with the general public for being a nice guy. Within the media, he has a shocking reputation for being a real sod. I mean, I go no further than mentioning the name Amanda Holden, who is but one of the many people, but she's come out and said it publicly. And I'm not going to validate the confidences of people who've told me privately what a jerk he is. But I certainly have experienced it myself now.
Yes. I mean, even after the scandal with this young man as well.
Oh, but he managed to turn that into a virtue. And since it's come up, one of the specific questions was, which I will now try to look up. So bear with me for a second. Somebody called Tracy McGowan wrote and asked, Lady C, please tell us, what did you say to Philip and Holly on Good Morning Show? Because you pulled away from your mic, and I'm sure other people couldn't hear what you said to Philip. He tried to shut you down. You told him something about truth, and you told him he should have been truthful earlier or something like that. I didn't hear you because you pulled away from the mic. Well, Tracy McGowan, the answer to the question is, I did not pull away from my mic. They regulate the sound in the studio. And when I started to tell Phillip Schofield that effectively he was a fraud and a phony, and who the hell did he think he was speaking to when I have been truthful and he has spent his whole life living a lie. And the only reason why he stopped living it was that the newspaper was going to out him. And when he tried to shut me up, I spoke over him. But in the studio, they can regulate the sound. And so they regulated the sound. They obviously, and also he has an earpiece in his ear. And they were obviously in the studio saying to him, keep talking, because they heard me and they knew what I was saying even better than he did. And they obviously were saying to him, keep talking, keep talking, keep talking, drown her out, drown her out, drown her out. Because they did not want the public hearing me call him out on the fact that he is basically a huge phony.
Yes.
And that how dare he try to imply that I, who am anything but a phony, would somehow need lessons from him in honesty or proper reportage. I mean, so that's really what happened.
And I was next to you, so yes,
and you heard
I heard everything. Yes,
yeah.
So I can confirm.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
he overtalk you, just that audience people don't hear it on TV, and maybe they play with,
because they play with the sound. They regulate the sound so that, because I was talking over him, and
they were cutting you.
But they were, but had he shut up, they wouldn't have been able to play with the sound.
Because they will hear everyone that you're cut.
So they couldn't cut me because it was live, and if he had shut up until I had finished, so they allowed me to believe that I was prevailing, while in fact they were manipulating the sound. So it comes out as white noise, or shall we say it comes out as dishonest noise.
Yes, and then after he just quickly changed the topic and started to talk about the book finally.
yes. He thought he was going to ambush me.
Yeah, well, he was trying to discredit you even before you start to talk about your book. So that if he discredited you at the first point, at the beginning of the interview, then there is, your book doesn't have a point or any importance.
Yeah, that's right. But the truth is, the public is now, by and large, sufficiently sophisticated, unless they're stupid. And I mean, there are loads of stupid people out there as well. You only need to look at some of the comments in some of the websites or whatever they're called to see that there are a whole load of complete idiots out there. But putting them aside, the average person is really, and I've said it before and I'll say it again, they're really very sophisticated, and they know the truth, and they know when people are being honest. But I mean, there are also loads of idiots, hence why Phillip Schofield is regarded as a nice guy. I mean, if you read some of the comments that people have published on our videos about Phillip Schofield, you'll see that, I mean, most of the people have got him in one. They can see the guy's a total jerk and a nasty piece of work.
But even my friends also send me messages, from other countries. They seen it on internet and they said, he was not very nice. This was really not the topic, not the point to do this.
He was unprofessional, and for that I do not forgive him. He was unprofessional. He did not do justice to his profession. He did not do justice to the interview. He did not do justice to his subject. He did not do justice to his audience. He did justice to no one.
Because if he said this to you, then this applies to every other biographer who is writing the book.
Yes, but also, he
then insult other people, not just you.
Yes, but you see, I mean, obviously many of the people who are looking at his program have never read a book in their life and wouldn't understand about biographies. And as for that Dumbo, Dolly, Holly, coming up with, oh, I don't understand what integrity means. Can you tell me what integrity means and how does it apply to mental health? I mean, give me a break. Of course she knew exactly what she was saying.
She was trying to save him and
That's
change
right.
the narrative.
That's exactly right, as I told you yesterday.
Yes.
That's exactly what she was trying to do. But still, the way she did it was, I mean, okay, she couldn't come up with anything valid, so she came across as a real Dumbo. But I gather that, in fact, it's all an act, that she's actually extremely clever and, just plays upon the dumb blonde role when, in fact, she's anything but. She's sharper than two pins, evidently. Also, she'd have to have the hide of a rhinoceros to be able to cope with that thing on a daily basis.
Yes.
So
I think that was a very good observation on the situation which happened, and I'm really thankful that you agreed to talk about this, even for free.
Well, I'd sooner talk about it for free than get paid for it by one of the newspapers.
Yes. Yes.
But I think we have some treats in store for you guys, because there are loads of really interesting questions and one or two very interesting subjects that we will be addressing down the line. I am going to be interviewing Mark Sykes.
Oh, yes.
And we're not only going to be touching upon the whole business of the Sykes-Picot line and the consequences thereafter, but upon such matters as slavery, which will be very interesting.
Yes, indeed.
Indeed. And very topical at the moment.
At the moment, yes.
And also I will be addressing questions from various people, such as my opinion on whether statues should be torn down. So that will be coming. So it's not all going to be Harry, Meghan, the tiresome press, etc., etc. There will hopefully be one or two other more intelligent
actual
things.
topics. Yes.
So, but also maybe everybody could tell me whether they want such heavy things as well as lightweight stuff, and the combination of the two. But I hope we're not going to have to address any more of this tiresome business of Holly and the Dolly.
Okay, great. So the next week, the next episode will be your interview with the Mark Sykes. So this will be very interesting. So I'm sure that many people will like it. And that's it for today. Thank you very much again.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Goodbye.